Hi everybody, I'm continuing on with my jointer project, and these are the 3 blades out of it, and I need to sharpen them. I've already done one. I had a request through the jointer video to show what technique I was going to use to do this, because I'm going to do it freehand. I don't want to build any jigs or buy any jigs to do this, so I'm just going to step through it and let you know my process. I was originally starting to use stones, and I was using my water stones for this. And then it kind of dawned on me that not everybody may have access to stones. So I'm going to do it with wet and dry sandpaper. This is technically, I guess, what they would call the scary sharp system, which, you know, I've been doing things like this well before I even had the internet. So it is a system that works, and it works well. You can see I lopped the tip of my finger off right here. I didn't even realize I did it. So be careful is what I'm getting at, because these things will become scary sharp. I'm going to go ahead and show you what's wrong with the blades, because to sharpen something you really need to know what you're working with and how to do it. So I'm going to do a little bit of rough drawing and things like that, but I'm going to turn a light on here, and I'm just going to take one of them out of the picture. This is one that I'm getting ready to sharpen, and I'm looking right down on the edge of the blade. Hopefully you can see the light dancing off that edge. That's a blunt edge. It could be a blunt edge or it could be a rolled edge, and I'll explain that here in a minute. But this is definitely dull when you can see that. So now let me show the one that I've sharpened. I'm looking through the viewfinder. I'm going to try not to slice myself again. And hopefully you can see that there's no light dancing off of this edge right here. That means it's sharp. So this is what we're going to try to achieve. Now, I'm only doing about 4-inch blades, so I'm able to do this by hand with control. If you're doing anything longer, you might be able to get away with 6 inches. But you know, 12-inch, 20-inch, stuff like that, you're probably going to need a jig. But anyway, you can see how good this blade's looking. Alright, well, I'm going to do some rudimentary drawings here. I'm not an artist, so hopefully you'll get the idea. I was mentioning that you need to know what type of an edge you're dealing with, if it's a rolled edge or a blunt edge. A blunt edge, I'm just going to draw out the way the blades are kind of done here, exaggerating things. This would be a blunt edge. So when we were looking down at that blade, the light is refracting and bouncing back off of this surface here. That's how we know it's dull. A rolled edge would look something like that, and that's what we're dealing with. The light will still bounce off of that. It'll appear dull, but it's not just blunt, it's rolled and blunt. So I hope that makes sense. And I can feel it on the back of this, and we'll get into feeling for wire edges and things like that in a little bit, but I can feel it right there, and I'm going to try to put some marker or die chem on this so you can really see what's going on as we move into repairing these. So the first thing I'm going to do is flatten the back of it right here, and in essence what I'm going to do is just cut this material off. I'm going to cut that edge off right there and make sure this is all one plane, because if we don't, we would actually have to grind or hone or stone all the way down to this area here to get this to point back up like this, which is what we're trying to achieve. So by removing that little bit off the edge, we'll lessen our flat or our blunt, and then we'll have to take less material off here to get this to sharpen back up to a point. I hope that makes sense. I apologize for my weak drawings here, but that's the first step I'm going to do, is flatten the back of it and remove that right there. Then we'll start working, and I'll show you what I'm going to do. Okay, I've got my granite surface plate on my workbench here. This is what I'm going to be using for a flat surface. If you don't have one of these, you could use a fairly thick piece of plate glass. You could use a tile, just anything that's relatively flat. So I'm going to start out with 180 on this. I was stoning at 220 and it was taking me a long time to get the results I wanted. which is why I went into this and changed my mind on how I was going to do it. Now obviously you want to start with the least grit possible to clean up or sharpen whatever you're sharpening with. If it just needs a touch-up hone or something like that, you're not going to jump down to 180 and work your way up through the grits or the stones. But if you don't go down far enough, you'll spend tons of time working at a particular grit. So drop down a couple and find the one that's the least aggressive but the most time saving. So I'm just going to throw a little bit of water on my stone here. So this is where I'm going to be working. And I have dye chem on this, like I said. I figured it might work a little bit better. I'm just going to place it down and I'm just trying to show you at first that edge if I can. It's very difficult to see, but hopefully you can see that that edge is bright along here, and then it's not touching right behind it. You can see that blue line, I hope. That's the rolled edge holding this off. That's what we're going to get rid of first to save ourselves some time. Now I'm just putting even pressure on this, kind of going at it. You know, and as you get more experienced with this stuff, you don't need to use the dye chem or a marker. You know, I'm just feeling for it now, and it's almost gone. You know, but sometimes I'll still use it just to see where I'm at when I start. I'm just applying a moderate pressure. This may get a little bit long, and you can also feel it this way on your skin if it grabs. We'll get into this here in a little bit. Okay, well I'm fine with that right there, and you saw how long it took to kind of flatten this back surface and get it all cleaned up. Now, like I said, I don't have jigs or anything I'm using for this, so I'm going to do it by hand. And since this is just a single bevel here, I'm just going to let it be my guide. So I'm just putting it down here and I'm rocking it forward and distributing my fingers equally. And then I'm just going to go back and forth like this. You can see it's already starting to take shape that quick. Now I do want to say, I want to talk a little bit about my body here because of what I'm doing. You can't see. Once I rock it up here, I'm loosening the elbows, the shoulders, the fingers, the wrists. Everything is loose. And once I find that place, I start with my grip. I tighten up my grip, and then I lock my wrists, elbows, and shoulders, and I'm just kind of rocking my body back and forth a little bit or wiggling side to side. You know, and speed comes later. Get your control first. It may take you longer, but if you have to go this slow, go that slow, or start slow and then slowly get your rhythm. And get in your groove. Okay, that surface is looking pretty good. What I'm doing now is I'm going to feel for a burr. What I'm trying to do is create a burr, and it'll roll around this back edge. And I don't have it yet. So I need to work this for a bit. It'll get easier as the grits go. This one's just kind of setting the bevel and starting the sharpening process. And since it still had a little flat on the top, I'm going to have to grind that flat away until it starts curling the material around what you're looking at would be the back of the blade, but curling it over the top towards us. Still not there. Yep. So I'm going to work on this till I get the burr, and then I'll fire the video back up. Okay, well now I've developed my wire edge on the back of this, and I'll explain exactly what I mean there. Here's another representation of the blade. We originally started by flattening to knock off the blunt edge, and then this is the surface I've been working on right here. And I kept sharpening this surface and looked at it visually like this to make sure it went all the way out to the edge. And here's the little wire I'm speaking of. That edge, as you're sharpening it, it will curl this around backwards. So hopefully that makes sense. And to check for that edge as you're going, you run it sideways or backwards across the blade from behind, and you'll be able to feel it. If you have callous fingers or whatnot, you know, find a spot on your skin, and it's just scratching me as I move this backwards. So I know I have that edge all the way across now. So now I'm going to break it off. So I'm just going to lay it back down like we did to flatten. A little even pressure. Few light strokes here. Little quick wipe with a rag. And now that edge should be pretty much gone. And what you might do is take a dowel or a pencil or a small piece of wood, just lightly go down through here. That'll also take that edge off after you do the back side like I just did, the flattening. So now I can feel it's getting sharp. It feels uniform all the way down. And we're going to do the same thing on the next grit. So I'll be jumping to a 220 on this one and going through the same procedure. I'll put a Sharpie on here. It might dry a little faster. Like I said, I'm just kind of doing this as a visual representation. This is not really necessary. Just put a little bit on here just so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. The whole objective right here, moving from grit to grit, is to remove the previous striations. So I'll just paint a little bit on here. I should have a wide marker, but I don't. Alright, down and dirty. And the first thing I'm going to do on this one is just a simple little flattening of the back, just like we did before on the 220. You can see I've already got rid of all that. Look at it. Do just a little bit more. You can obviously see my paper's curling on me now. Try to stick it down. May have to tape it down, but I'll just try to get it out of the way. And then we'll do the same thing. I'll just keep progressing up through the grits. Just rolling it forward and working at it. Once you do your work, it takes the longest amount of time to do the first work if they're really bad, meaning on the 180. It took me quite a while, maybe 5-7 minutes to do that first one. But the grits as you go up, if you spend the time you need there and make sure it is done correctly, it'll get easier and easier and quicker as you move up through the grits. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm just checking for that wire edge. I'm going to roll a new one around, and then once I get that rolled around there, I will flip it over to the back side, take it off, and then I'll move to the next grit. You know, the same process here goes for if you're using stones. It doesn't matter. This is just an abrasive material, just like a stone would be. This actually may be a little bit more friendly to people than, let's say, using a water stone or something like that, because they wear really quickly and you have to keep them flat, you know. So there's a lot of care that goes into those stones to take care of them. You know, this is quick and easy. You go down to the auto store or wherever, buy some wet and dry sandpaper, use it, throw it away, use another piece, you know. And you don't have to use pieces this big. You can use smaller ones or make a board with several on it, whichever. And I can tell I'm getting real close right there. I'm starting to feel it. I've got a little bit right in the middle, so I'll apply just a little bit more pressure there. You know, this is not real fun to watch, but I just kind of wanted to show you. And yeah, I feel the wire edge now all the way down. I'm just testing again. It looks good. Now it's just simple laying it on its back. A few strokes there, wipe it off. You always want to clean it in between grits as well. Don't take the grit from the previous job up with you. I can already tell that edge is gone. I'll go ahead and run it down this pencil here. Yeah, it's I can tell it's starting to sharpen up. So I'll step up to 320, I'll step up to 400, and then I'll finish off at 600, and that's as far as I'm going to take this. So I'm not going to show you the rest of going through the grits. Everything I've shown is exactly what I'm going to do. So I'll go through the rest of these and I'll show you the end results on this blade. Okay, well I'm going to go ahead and show the 600 grit for a couple of reasons. One, I did want to kind of illustrate how quick it goes once you get up into the finer grits. And secondly, just to make note, as you get finer in grits, that wire edge is going to be a little bit more difficult to detect. So we'll just run through it one more time. Like I said, I'm going to start with the back, and I'm just giving it a little more polishing and flattening on the back. And that's about all it took there. Now I'm going to go ahead and do this. I need to turn my paper. Same principle throughout. It also gets easier to control when you get to the finer abrasives, because they're not quite as big. I'll just stop there. I'm going to dry it off with a rag. It's easier to feel if you get the water off of it. And then just feeling for that wire edge. And it's very slight. Got a little bit right here. I need a little bit more. Just a little bit more right here. Kind of wanted to be thorough here and explain as much as I could about what I was trying to do, because a lot of this stuff it's a feel, and it's a feel you have to develop, and I am by no means a pro at sharpening things. I've been at this for years, and to be really good at sharpening stuff, it takes a lifetime. I mean, there's people that can do it naturally, not me. I've really had to work on this. But I've got the wire edge now. Now it's just a matter of simply removing it off the back. Just a few light strokes here. Give it a quick wipe down. And that is one sharp blade. Alright, well here's a quick shot of the one I just finished. You can see it's actually picked up quite a reflection from that 600 grit, but there's no light refracting off this edge. It is sharp. And I'll bring in the one that I have not done yet just for a quick comparison, and you can see how much light is bouncing off this rolled over edge. A blunt edge will exhibit the same problem, but I can feel it rolled over. So this is just one way you might consider doing short irons like this, or short blades. This one you can see has a nick in it. I'm not going to try to take that nick totally out. Wherever it ends up, it ends up. There is no nick on the blade that's going to be running behind it, so, or in front of it. So it should clear that out. And if you did have a nick that was in two blades, if you have enough room, you can actually stagger the nicks so they'll kind of cancel each other out, if that makes sense, if you've got that amount of leeway. But I will finish up the last one. Typically I would do all three with the same grit before moving on, so I'm not doing all the change ups, but I wanted to shoot this in a way where I could show afters and befores and things of that nature. So I hope this helps in some way. Thanks for watching, guys, and good luck.